It's not the right time. That's what NBC told Johnny Carson on April 11th, 1968. 1 week after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. 1 week after major riots swept through cities across America. 1 week after the country changed direction. It's not the right time for a black comedian. Too sensitive. Sponsors are uneasy. Affiliates are calling. We should postpone. The comedian's name was Raymond Washington. He was 26 years old, with 8 years of performing in clubs that made him use the back entrance. 8 years of hearing he was almost ready. Finally booked on The Tonight Show. Finally receiving an opportunity. And now NBC wanted to delay it because the nation was tense, because companies were cautious, because executives felt the moment wasn't suitable. Johnny listened as they presented their reasons. He heard the business arguments, the political concerns, the safety worries. When they finished, Johnny said something that would influence television history. It's never the right time. That's the issue. The executives didn't follow his point, so Johnny continued. Whenever a black performer tries to advance, people claim it isn't the right time. Too early. Too uncertain. Wait for stability. But stability never fully arrives. There is always another reason to delay. Another justification to say, not now. Do you want to know when the right time is? The right time is when someone earns their opportunity. Raymond Washington earned his. He's performing tonight. The executives warned him again. Sponsors. Affiliates. Advertising risks. Johnny didn't hesitate. Then you have a choice to make. Either Raymond appears, or I don't. And I'd be glad to explain to the press why The Tonight Show isn't airing tonight. That night, Raymond Washington stepped onto The Tonight Show stage. 12 minutes that began a career. 12 minutes that showed America could still share a moment of laughter during a difficult week. 12 minutes made possible because Johnny Carson understood what the executives didn't. The right time for fairness isn't when conditions are perfect. It's when a person is prepared. And Raymond Washington had been prepared his entire life. Raymond Washington was born in Detroit in 1942. His father worked at a Ford plant. His mother cleaned homes for white families in the suburbs. They lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that would later be damaged during the 1967 riots. Raymond discovered comedy early in life. He made classmates laugh, copied teachers, neighbors, and anyone with a unique voice or way of walking. His mother worried it would cause trouble. Sometimes it did, but Raymond couldn't stop. Making people laugh was the only thing that felt clear in a world that often didn't. For 8 years, Raymond worked the club circuit, Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, small venues, late hours, and low pay. He heard stories of comedians reaching television, mostly white performers getting their breakthroughs on variety shows and late-night programs. Raymond knew his talent matched theirs, and in many cases exceeded it. But the opportunities that opened for white comedians remained closed to him. Too bold, they said. Too political. Too black. Even so, Raymond kept performing, improving, and believing that someone would eventually give him a real chance. In early 1968, Raymond received a call from his agent. The Tonight Show wanted him, not as an interview guest, but as a performer. 12 minutes to deliver his set in front of millions of viewers. This was the moment he had been working toward for his entire career. He left his side job, moved to Los Angeles, and spent weeks perfecting his routine, every word, every pause, every movement. This had to be perfect. His appearance was scheduled for April 11th, 1968. Then Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April 4th, and the country unraveled. Riots broke out in more than 100 cities. Washington, D.C. burned. Chicago burned. Baltimore burned. The National Guard was deployed, and curfews were put in place. In the week after King's assassination, 43 people died, more than 3,000 were injured, and 27,000 were arrested. The nation felt like it was battling itself. And suddenly, Raymond Washington's Tonight Show appearance became an issue. The call came on the morning of April 11th. Raymond's agent sounded discouraged. They want to reschedule. The network says it's not the right time. Raymond knew what reschedule really meant. It meant canceled. It meant they had found a reason to back out. It meant 8 years of work had disappeared because the country was afraid. Raymond sat in his small Los Angeles apartment, 3,000 miles from home, with nothing certain. No income, no job, no safety net. Only a suitcase and a dream that was slipping away because some executives believed a black comedian making America laugh was too risky. What Raymond didn't know was that Johnny Carson was responding very differently to the same information. When Johnny's producer informed him of the network's decision, Johnny didn't debate it. He simply picked up the phone and contacted the head of NBC programming himself. "I just heard you're removing Raymond Washington from tonight's show." The executive began listing reasons: sponsors, affiliates, the current situation. Johnny interrupted. "Let me ask you something. Is he funny?" "That's not really the issue right now." "Is he funny?" Johnny asked again. A brief pause. "Yes, he's very funny. But with everything going on." "So you're saying a talented comedian who earned his place on my show is being dropped because he's black and the country had a difficult week?" Johnny replied. The executive tried to shift the discussion, talking about sensitivity, timing, and optics. Johnny didn't accept it. "Here's what I see," Johnny said. "I see a young man who has worked his entire life for this chance, who moved across the country because he believed this opportunity mattered. Someone sitting in an apartment right now thinking his dream just disappeared. And I see a group of executives who have never taken a real risk telling me to cancel him because they're uneasy." The executive turned to business concerns. Johnny stopped him. "Here's a business reality for you. Either Raymond Washington performs tonight, or I don't. You can explain to the sponsors why The Tonight Show is airing reruns. You can explain to the affiliates why Johnny Carson walked off his own program. And you can explain to the press why a black comedian was denied his spot 1 week after Martin Luther King was killed. I'd love to see how that plays." The line stayed quiet for a long moment. Johnny spoke again, calmer but just as firm. "You want to know when the right time is for a black comedian to appear on television? The right time is when he's prepared. Raymond Washington is prepared. He has been for a long time. The only people who aren't prepared are the ones in this building who think equality is something you schedule when it feels convenient." The executive made one more attempt. "What if there's backlash? What if sponsors withdraw? What if affiliates decide not to air the show?" Johnny's response was direct. "Then we'll handle it. But we're not going to penalize Raymond Washington for the country's issues. He didn't create them. He's simply trying to bring some humor to people. And right now, the nation could use laughter." The network stepped back. Raymond Washington's phone rang later that afternoon. His agent sounded different, uncertain, yet optimistic. "There's been a change. You're on tonight. Call time is 7:30. Raymond didn't question it. He didn't even consider asking why. He just began preparing. This was his opportunity. Whatever happened behind closed doors, he now had 12 minutes to reshape his future. That evening, Raymond Washington stepped onto the Tonight Show stage. The audience wasn't sure what to expect. A black comedian appearing 1 week after King's assassination, during one of the most tense periods in years. Many things could have gone wrong. Raymond took the microphone, looked at the crowd, and said, "So, it's been a rough week. Anyone else need a drink?" The audience laughed hesitantly at first, then with real ease. Raymond had done something important. He acknowledged the moment without escalating it. He gave people space to feel what they were already feeling. And for the next 12 minutes, he made them laugh. Raymond's set wasn't focused on race, at least not directly. He talked about growing up with limited money, his mother's cooking, and the difference between how people behave in church compared to how they act at home. Everyday topics, human topics, the kind of humor that reminds people they share more similarities than they realize. By the end of his 12 minutes, the audience stood and applauded. Not because he was a black comedian, but because he was a skilled comedian who happened to be black. Johnny walked over after the performance, shook Raymond's hand, and told him he was welcome back anytime. Raymond had no idea what Johnny had done to make this possible. He wouldn't learn the full story for many years. The sponsors didn't withdraw. The affiliates didn't push back. The angry calls NBC expected never arrived. Instead, something entirely different happened. Letters began arriving, thousands of them. From white viewers who said Raymond made them laugh during one of the hardest weeks of their lives. From black viewers who said seeing someone who looked like them on The Tonight Show meant more than they could describe. From people across the country who said they needed those 12 minutes of normalcy, of humor, of reassurance that America could still share moments of joy. Raymond Washington's career expanded quickly after that night. More Tonight Show appearances, television specials, and eventually his own program. He became one of the most successful black comedians of his era, and he always pointed to that first Tonight Show performance as the turning point. But Raymond never knew the full story. He never knew how close he came to losing the opportunity. He never knew what Johnny had put on the line to make it happen. The truth surfaced in 1998, 30 years later. A retired NBC executive released a memoir that described the events of April 11, 1968. The phone call, Johnny's ultimatum, and the moment the network backed away. When Raymond read it, he called Johnny immediately. Johnny was retired by then, living quietly in Malibu. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Raymond asked. Johnny's reply was classic Johnny. "Tell you what, that I did my job? That I treated you like any other comedian who earned their spot? That's not something you announce. That's supposed to be normal." Raymond pushed further. "You risked your career for me." Johnny paused. "No, I risked my career for what was right. You just happened to be the person standing in the place where right needed to happen. Any decent person would have done the same." Raymond disagreed. "Plenty of people didn't do the same. Many chose the easy route. You didn't." Johnny's answer stayed with Raymond for the rest of his life. "The easy way out isn't actually easy, Raymond. It only feels easy at the time. You spend the rest of your life knowing you acted like a coward when it mattered. I didn't want to live with that. So I didn't." The events of April 11th, 1968 are not only about a comedian getting a break. They highlight what happens when someone in a position of influence chooses to use that influence for more than personal benefit. Johnny Carson didn't need Raymond Washington. The Tonight Show was already the top program in late night. His job was safe. His status was solid. Supporting a comedian he barely knew offered him nothing and risked everything. But Johnny recognized something the executives failed to see. Television wasn't just about entertainment. It shaped perception. Whatever appeared on The Tonight Show became a reflection of what America believed was normal. If the show featured only white performers, viewers would continue assuming that was the standard. If the show included black performers as well, the country would gradually see that as standard instead. Johnny chose to make inclusion ordinary. Step by step, performer by performer, stand by stand, one him or me moment at a time. Raymond Washington went on to appear on The Tonight Show 47 more times before Johnny's retirement. Every time he walked onto that stage, he remembered his first appearance, the standing ovation, the letters from people who needed laughter, and the behind-the-scenes battle he never knew took place. The one that made that moment possible. After Johnny passed away in 2005, Raymond spoke about their relationship in an interview. He said something that explained Johnny's impact better than any tribute could. Johnny Carson didn't see him as a black comedian. He simply saw him as a comedian. And in 1968, that was one of the boldest choices anyone in television could make. Not pretending race didn't exist, but refusing to let it decide who deserved a chance. That's exactly what Johnny did. He offered opportunities to people who earned them, no matter their background, and he pushed hard to protect their right to take those opportunities, even when they didn't realize support was needed. The right moment doesn't arrive on its own. That's what Johnny understood on April 11th, 1968. Waiting for a perfect time often means waiting endlessly. There will always be someone insisting it's too early, too complicated, or too controversial. Real progress doesn't happen when everything feels comfortable. It happens when someone decides that delaying is no longer acceptable. Johnny made that decision, and television changed because of it. If this story meant something to you, remember that the effort for representation is ongoing. Subscribe for more stories about moments that shaped history. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that the right time is always right now. And comment below, when have you seen someone take a risk for what's right? Johnny Carson showed us something vital that night in 1968. Power means very little if you don't use it when it matters. The easy path is rarely truly easy. And sometimes the most meaningful act is simply treating someone like they've already earned their place, because they have. They've been prepared. They've been waiting. All they need is someone willing to say him or me, and genuinely stand by it.